All right, Robert, good afternoon, good morning for me. Thank you so much for joining me today. This is the first episode of the One Big Tip Live. And I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for all the support. And, thank you to Rob Curtis for being a great supporter of the show. It's going to be an excellent conversation today, right? Because Robert is the best networker that I have seen yet, right? And why is that interesting, right? Because what's that famous quote that you have, where networking is the gateway drug to
Exactly.
opportunity?
Exactly.
Yeah, he said that, and I was like, it just opened up, like everything just opened up for me. So I'm really glad to have him. Robert, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Delighted to be your guinea pig. It's a year of, I guess, guinea pigs out there. There's lots of people getting the vaccine and doing things for the first time. I mentioned before we came on that my son actually has just gone literally an hour ago and had to go for a corona test. So here I am talking to you and putting the world to rights together with Jeff on the One Big Tip Live, which I've absolutely loved your podcast. I've got to be honest with you. You were one of two people that inspired me to actually create my own podcast because I was just so enamored and fell in love with your model and the format of the One Big Tip. And I don't miss an episode. So kudos to you.
Thank you so much for that. So, just for everyone listening in, this is going to be a bro love fest here, right? Because part of my inspiration was what Robert was doing, right? And I don't want to steal Robert's thunder, but can you please talk about the hashtag 500 coffees, why you started it, and what it's morphed into? This is something that for you just turned into this huge thing that just gave you an amazing platform and some amazing legs to do some really cool stuff, which we're going to get into a little bit later in this conversation.
Absolutely. I guess, first of all, if I guess track back a little bit and just go back, maybe even to the start of my career, every opportunity that ever came my way, every new job opportunity or new friendship or new relationship often came about because of networking. I can't think of one great turn in my life that didn't happen because of the impact of meeting new people and just doing that effort of putting in the yards to basically get to know people and do the networking. So I always had that in my mind. I always knew that that was something important, but life gets in the way, right? Jobs and family and kids and spouses and all sorts of other things going on. And sometimes networking gets put onto the sort of to-do list that never gets done. And beginning of 2020, I was thinking about my new business, Pipe Global, and just how we would tell the story of what we were doing. I'd watched endless Gary Vee videos and all sorts of other things. And I wanted my shtick. What was going to be my shtick on LinkedIn and social media generally? And I was sitting having a coffee in Renana, beautiful city in Israel. It's sunny. It's January. It's still sunny. And I said to the people I was meeting, I said, you know what? We're going to take a photo and you're going to be the first moment that I share on LinkedIn where I talk about you guys. This isn't about me. It's networking. It's you. And I'm going to do all of this over coffee. Literally, I promise you came to me like, boom, and born was 500 coffees. Now, I wasn't thinking 500 at that stage. I was thinking coffee is a great conduit to conversations, and I'm going to meet lots of people, and I'll just take a photo and share it and tell their story and sort of wrap it up with a bit of a format or a franchise of X coffees. I don't know why I picked 500.
Yeah, because that's a lot of caffeine. I mean, let's be clear, right?
It's a lot of caffeine. And I should probably have never picked 500, but I should have picked, I don't know, 365 or something like that, a person a day. But we're at now sort of over 200. It's definitely taking longer than I thought. But I do this as an active moment every day of the week. And so if I'm finding it hard to continue to keep getting through. Can you imagine people who don't ever get around to it? So I'm sort of really, really interested in promoting how important networking is. I instill it into my kids. I talk to everyone about it. People I meet for coffee and share their stories. I tell them, you've got to do this with other people. Pay it forward. This isn't like an exclusive club here. Go and meet people and tell the story. And so I hashtagged it, 500 coffees. And it's been an incredible journey over the past 12 months, meeting amazing people. Corona meant that I could meet people like you all around the world that maybe I wasn't thinking about doing before because we were all sort of siloed, but digitization came and I was able to open it up and just meet incredible people, hear their stories, see whether there was synergy, either to work together or just connect them with other people. I've helped people find jobs. It's just a good thing. It's a good thing to do. I promise you, as you said in the intro, it is the gateway to opportunity.
You know what's so cool about that is that I was because you and I have, I don't know, like 50 connections on LinkedIn in common. So that's how I sort of came into your sphere, because I would see all these people having coffee with you, and I'm like, who the hell's this Rob guy, right? I thought I knew a lot of the a lot of the players in the Israeli high tech scene, and I was like, okay, no, so we just connected, and like, oh, okay, that was about it. We never really talked. But then I interviewed a mutual friend of ours, Clodagh Higgins from Sligo in Ireland, right? And we were also talking about networking, and she was just like, she told her story about what she thought. I'm like, well, something, I know this guy in Israel who does, who does coffees, and she was like, oh yeah, Rob. And I was like, wait a second, how is Rob jumping all these barriers, right? And the truth of all this is, there really are no more barriers, right? We're doing this now, over streaming software. We could have easily done this over Zoom, and we have like 15 different methods just in our cell phones on how we can communicate with each other, right? So there really is actually no real barrier anymore for those who are brave enough to actually go out and do it, right? To actually, be bold enough and say, hey, I want to have a virtual coffee with you, right? What, when like after you've done this already, well, first of all, as of today, how many coffees have you documented in this process?
I've done, I don't think I've posted them all yet, but I've actually had about 220 coffees. So within the next week or so, we would have shared them all on social media. I would say, by the way, just about what you said before, we do have more communication methods than ever to connect with each other globally. I have a little theory on this, and it's a little bit like the sort of explosion of having books. There are more books printed than ever before. But actually, the amount of people who are truly either writing a book or reading a book is less. People aren't consuming like the way that you would think. So I think although there are more ways to communicate than ever, not everyone's taking advantage of that. So there are a lot of people who are looking, trolling, viewing, are passive on social media or other messaging apps, or today I was playing around with Clubhouse. What I would encourage everyone to do is like sort of just get over the fear of it and jump in to do that networking. You don't have to win them all. Nobody cares if you mess it up. And I just think we're in a generation where there are more ways than ever, like you said, but a small proportion of people are actually using them. So to do what they really want to do. So I say this with sort of humble hat, but go and do it. It works. LinkedIn genuinely changed the velocity of my business over the last 12 months because of coffees and because of the ability to post without fear and to communicate, not just troll, communicate.
That's really amazing. One of the things that one of the demons, if you will, that I dealt with is that I was and I don't talk about this too much, I really should, is that I was the kid that stuttered in high school, right? I was like, do not, like, don't even call on me in class. Like, it was bad. And I look back on it now, granted it's 30, 40 years ago, dating myself a little bit, right? But but it's still something that sticks with you, right? It's still something that's like, should I not do it? And it's like, geez, if I can go out and make a podcast and start doing lives and start presenting stuff and all that, it's like, there literally is no reason, because we're all holding these little 4K recording devices in the palm of our hands, and everyone has a platform, right? I mean, just choose which platform you want to be on. I mean, our kids are going to be on TikTok. We're probably going to be on Facebook, where the old people are. And it's like, it really is, it really does bring things down to, like this tiny global village that you could just reach out and talk to somebody, halfway around the world. Just hope that they're awake when you call, and that, that's really, like, I think the most magnificent part of what we're living in, and the way that you and I are seizing opportunities in order to make that happen for us.
I completely agree. I think it's two part. It's, you mentioned your sort of childhood there, but you can live out your dreams, you can overcome those challenges, and these platforms actually do enable you to make that happen. So if you can't face doing a video, then do a blog or whatever it might be. But there's so many options for everybody, and the beauty of opening up these platforms to everybody, and everybody having, it's topical at the moment, particularly in the States, around social media, but generally it's like there's the gateway drug to opportunity through networking. It's also the gateway drug to education and cultural understanding, because we're breaking down barriers. You're telling me about Florida, I met Claudia from Ireland, I've met people that I would never have connected with properly, because we live in our little worlds. When you expand and you do that networking, it just opens your eyes, and we can get through all of the sort of differences that maybe live in the world if we just speak to each other like this.
That's an excellent segue, because let's talk about your next big thing that you did, right? And this is hugely monumental in the speed that it happened and the opportunities that it created, right? So what is it, about 4 months ago? All of a sudden, out of the blue, former President Trump, announces that the countries Israel and the United Arab Emirates have made peace, right? They, but there was all this hype about the Emiratis coming to Israel, and then Israelis going to Dubai. These are places that were like, literally you couldn't go to, you couldn't even talk about before, and then all of a sudden it's open, right? So now you have all of this, like all of this traffic, and a real hunger for populations from both countries to really get to know each other, and of course do business, right? And the big thing that really just blew me away was that Rob just said, well, all right, I'm going to start the UAE Israel Chamber of Commerce, right? And I thought that was so bold, right? That was just like, well, no one else is doing it, why not me? You didn't ask permission, you just went ahead and did it, right? Can you please talk a little bit about that, about what the mood was, immediately prior to that, and then how that manifested into, well, I'm going to start a Chamber of Commerce, let's see what happens, right? What was that experience like for you?
Look, first of all, the message goes back to what we've already been speaking about, which is when opportunities come your way, the decider is how you actually react to them. Do you push them away, or do you embrace them? And so it was sort of mid-August, and there had been this announcement that nobody was expecting, that former President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed were making this peace agreement literally out of nowhere. And I was actually sitting on a horse with my kids in the boiling heat. We're trekking through this small farm that are putting on these like family horse riding things, because we're in lockdown, semi-lockdown. You could go out and do some things. And I'm on this horse. It's boiling hot Israeli summer heat. 48 hours ago, there's this news of a peace agreement between Israel and the UAE. Unheard of. This is a tough neighborhood. 70 years of pretty much war or Cold
of
War.
animosity and just, button heads and
Exactly, with everybody around us. Even though there have been, many, undercurrents and underchannels of discussions, I'm sure. But I'm on this horse, and basically, I think to myself, "Oh my gosh, there's an amazing opportunity that no one has taken yet." So I'm on this horse, and I'm like, LinkedIn. The business community is going to go nuts for this peace agreement. Israel's an advanced economy. The UAE has a seriously advanced economy, highly modern country. What they've done in nearly 50 years since they founded is unbelievable. And so I'm on this horse. I'm like, when is this horse riding thing going to be over? I need to get home to set up a LinkedIn UAE Israel business network. I quickly phoned my partner, Simon, and said, we're doing this. We're doing it this afternoon. We're going to be the first. No one's done it yet. We start up this LinkedIn group. Within hours, we had like 3,000 members. And my phone is blowing up like crazy. Can't believe you were involved in the Accords. That's so cool. And I was like, what? I wasn't involved, but no one needs to know that at this stage. Just keep going with the story. And this is like gathering pace. And really, we're getting messages from Israelis, we're getting messages from Americans, we're getting messages from Emiratis. The lawyers start coming in and they're like, how do we get involved? There's going to be business. And we're like, okay, we're onto something here. And because there was such an open feeling of, we've got to make this a warm peace. Peace in the past with Egypt and Jordan has been strategic. It's been military. We're not going on holiday to Amman or Cairo anytime soon. The conditions don't exist for that. But since the peace arrangement with the UAE has happened, I think 70,000 Israelis have been to Dubai since then. Unbelievable.
wow.
So this group took on a life of its own, and literally from an idea that we executed that moment, grew this amazing group that we ended up merging with another group who came later than us, but had some really interesting people in it. And we said, look, no point having two. Let's put it all together. That was actually with an amazing lady called Fleur Hassan Nakhum. She is the deputy mayor of Jerusalem, very involved in foreign affairs for Jerusalem as a city. And again, inspired by you, we actually set up the Abraham Accords podcast, and we've had incredible guests. I mean, we've had the new ambassador to the UAE, had Ambassador Michael Oren. We had the chief of staff to Ambassador David Friedman. We've had some incredible Emiratis on, and the whole thing spiraled. And we're connecting people. And it's early days. It's so early. It's still not even 6 months, but this is an amazing time for the region. And I hope that the new administration embrace the sort of velocity that this normalization has with, Bahrain came in, then Morocco and Sudan as well. There's so much opportunity, and it's just been exciting to be involved in it.
What an amazing story. I mean, just thinking about how you can first of all, just being as bold as to, I'm going to nail this. I'm going to nail this right now. And, let's see what happens, is great. Have you been able to attribute any of the connections that you've made through the Abraham Accords podcast or the Chamber of Commerce that you established to actual deals, materials, trading hands, money trading hands? Like, are you aware of how that's affected other people in that regard?
Yeah, so we've actually connected a few people more on the tourism element at this stage. There's still a lot to be set up. They've only really just started to open up the banking system between the countries. We were only able to, telephone and WhatsApp between each other very recently. So food and the export of kosher food actually has been one where we were able to connect exporters of kosher food to the UAE. So that was a direct result of that. And, the hotels there and the cultural ministry have been incredibly warm and opening of understanding what the traveling Jew might need. And they've, really gone the extra mile. It's been so impressive to see. There are really classy people. And I hope that once Corona is over, that there'll be that sort of back and forth between peoples, because there's nothing, particularly in the Middle East. Everything's around hospitality, everything's around coffee, everything's about meeting up. And as much as digitalization has sped things up, regionally and culturally, there's nothing like the hug, the touchy-feely, sitting over a coffee, and getting to know each other. And I think that's the biggest thing that probably I think Israelis have had to learn. Israelis, I'm not a native born, so I've got that Britishness that helps me out sometimes. But Israelis are transactional, they're direct. And actually the Emirati people are classy people who are built on relationships. And so we've got to balance that cultural difference. And there was one of the ministers at UAE said, business deals are going to happen. They're going to happen. But before we do that, I want to sit down with you and know who your mother is. What's your story? Let me find out about you. Tell me about your life. Let's build these relationships. And I thought that was just an incredible message.
That is so amazing. I so far have visited 4 Muslim majority countries, right? And I think one of the most poignant examples of that hospitality that you're talking about was when I had a 12-hour layover in Doha, Qatar, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is the first thing I do, like once you land in Doha and you have 12 hours to kill? I'm getting into a taxi, right? I'm going over to the Souk Waqif. I want to see what this place is all about. And the place is also very glitzy, very, very built up, very, sort of, it got that first world feel, right? And I'm wandering through this market. I end up in this little shop of like a traditional Qatari swords, right? And there were these 4 guys just sitting around. They were dressed in in their traditional dress, and they were just smoking the hookah and just talking shit amongst themselves, right? And here comes this American guy, just like, hi, how you doing? Oh yes, come on in. So they invited me in, and you're right away they start grilling me. Where are you from? What are you doing here? Or, but in a nice way, right? Please, and then they send over some guy to go bring me tea, right? And next thing you know, I'm sitting with these 4 Qatari bros, right? Just, for like a half an hour, just swapping stories. All of them were, were highly educated. All of them were genuinely interested in what it was that I had to say. And, and they were just so, just nice and appreciative that I chose their country to come and visit. Right. And for me, that was just, I'm loving it. This is great, and I think that's really the basis of how you actually sit down and, and talk to somebody. Just go get some tea, or get some coffee, right? And just start talking, right? And that's really where it all starts, right? And I made like 2 Instagram friends that night. We still keep in touch every once in a while, and it's wonderful. And I think that those kind of human connections are really the best. They're really the best kind, because it's like, how else are you going to make this happen, right? You actually have to go out there and be outside of your comfort zone. And so what if they don't speak English? You can always, sign, you can write stuff down. You can use, Google Translate in your phone. Like there are no more barriers, right? And that for me was what?
I think what you're saying is so true, and it reminds me rather of the late chief rabbi of the UK, Jonathan Sacks, incredible philosopher, probably one of the leading voices for the last 20 years. If you haven't read his books, read them. Doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or not. He speaks for everybody. And he talks a lot about the fear of the other. It's easy to be friends with the people we know, but you can't make peace with your friends. You have to make peace with your enemies. And you can't stop fearing the other until you actually get to know them. And I think that's something that has, dogged this region, and for sure is an issue around the world, that you can't get over that fear without understanding and learning about other people. You might not always agree with them, but at least you understand where they're coming from. And I think that's the big thing that I think this normalization has shown, is that you get over that fear, you start understanding the other, and good things happen.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Thank you so much for sharing that. Rob, can you please let everyone know how they can reach out to you, how they can learn more about what you're doing at Pipe Global, the Abraham Accords podcast, and of course, the Chamber of Commerce that you've established?
Sure, absolutely. That's quite a mouthful, but basically, the best
Well,
way
you do
is
so much, right? So,
the best way is for sure on social media, LinkedIn. Just Google or search on any of those platforms, Robert Curtis or Robert Curtis Pro. Look up Pipe Global, Apple, Spotify for the Abraham Accords podcast or my Coffee with Curtis podcast. Again, hats off to Jeff on this. Total inspiration for enabling me to live out some of my dream of being a sort of wannabe news anchor with my own little podcast. So come and find me. Let's have coffee, genuinely.
amazing stuff. Thank you so much for that. Rob, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with me and the community here. Thank you so much for everything that you do. It's all greatly appreciated.
Thanks so much, Jeff. Wishing you continued success with the podcast, your amazing work, and the new lives. I'll be watching out for them.
Cool. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.